All right, so for this game, we have what is largely a grouping game. We have 5 people that we have to put into 3 days. Now, the days themselves are pretty well defined in the sense that we know that there's going to be exactly 3 employees per day. So we're going to run the days themselves across the top. So we have effectively Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And we're actually given the spacing, right? So we have exactly 3 spaces in each one. The elements themselves then happen to be L, M, N, P, and Q, so we can line those up. Now, it's worth noting that already we only have 5 people that we have to put into 9 slots, which means that some people are definitely going to have to duplicate. We're definitely going to have doubles in this game, and that's kind of worth noting from the get-go. Let's take a look at the rules. So the first rule says that no volunteer works every day. So in other words, nobody can go 3 times, or in other words, I guess we can kind of say it's a maximum of 2 times per person. Now, if it's a maximum of 2 days per person, this actually starts creating limitations because, wait a minute, at the very most, if everybody went exactly twice, that would effectively fill out 10 slots. And here we have really 9 slots to work with, which is not really much less than that. In other words, it looks like we can do some damage in terms of figuring out how many times we'll go, how many people rather will go how many times. And distributions are the kind of thing that you do want to think about, because if nobody can work more than twice, and if everybody at most can work twice, but we still have to fill out 9 slots, really the only way we can make that happen is if, first of all, everybody's going to have to work. Because if some people are missing entirely, for example, if we didn't have a Q at all, then between L, M, N, and P, that would only be able to satisfy 8 slots, right? There's no way to make that work. So everybody's going to have to work, first of all, and that's something that we weren't originally told, so this is something that we can now figure out. But not only that, more specifically, what will have to happen is 4 of the people are going to have to go twice, and then 1 person will only go once. That's really the only way this can work. If 2 people only work once, so hypothetically, let's say P and Q both only worked just once, well then between L, M, and N, if they all work twice, then we're going to have 6 slots taken care of, and then 2 more for P and Q, but that's only 8 positions, and there's no way that's going to work. We have to have 9 slots to fill out, which means, yeah, we can actually make that deduction here now that essentially we're going to have 4 people doubling up, and then only 1 person is going to possibly be a single. Next. So the second rule tells us that on any day that M works, L will also work. So essentially, if we have an M, then we also have to have an L with that M. So I guess we can say we'll have an M-L block, which of course then the contrapositive, right? If we don't have an L, then we cannot have an M. And that's actually kind of significant as well, because now it's worth noting every single day has to have 3 people at least. And we don't have a lot of people to work with. There's only 5 in total. And in these kind of games, quite often, one of the things that you want to be considering is the fact that if there's not a lot of people that can go into these groups, then you start running out of options really quickly. And as soon as you start kind of disqualifying certain people from certain positions, it starts kind of locking down because then there's nobody left except for whoever's left over. So for example, in this case, if a given group doesn't have an L, then it's not going to have an M either. But then if you don't have an L and if you don't have an M, that effectively means that you're only going to be left with 3 people. If you take out L and M from a given group, you're only going to have N, P, and Q to work with. So if you trigger this, if you trigger that L's not going to be somewhere, then you're not going to have M either, that's actually pretty significant because then we're going to have N, P, and Q in that group. In fact, given that we're only allowed to have a maximum of 2 goes per person, each person can only go twice, that effectively means that one of the groups is definitely not going to have an L, right? Because L can't go into all 3 days. So one of the days is not going to have an L, which means that day is not going to have an M, which means that day is definitely going to have an NPQ. It's not just a question of if there happens to be a day without an L. We know that there will be a day without an L because you can't have L's everywhere. And on that day that doesn't have an L, you're not going to have an M, which means that there's going to definitely have to be a day that runs N, P, and Q. In fact, I guess we can take this one step further. If a given day doesn't have an L, then you're not going to have an M either, right? Now, if you don't have an L, then you can't have an M. That means that there's really only so many days that can't have an L, because hypothetically, because we said earlier, right, 4 people are going to be doubles and only one person is going to be a single. But if L is your single, that means that you're only going to be allowed one M, because in order to have an M, you would have to have an L, right? So if in order to have an M, you need an L, we really can't have L be your single, because if there's only a single L, you'll only be able to have a single M, and then we're going to end up with 2 singles, which we're not really allowed to do. Now, to be fair, M could be a single, because you could have just one M, and then you could have, that M will go with L, and you could have another L separately, right? L does not require M, but because M does require L, and they can't both be singles, we can't have just a single L. We can make a further deduction here that basically says that L is definitely going to be one of your doubles. Next, N works on Friday, so that's, I guess, good to know. So N will definitely be on the Friday. So I guess we can plug him right in. Now, note that this doesn't have to be your NPQ block, because we could still potentially have another N either on Thursday or Sunday, and that could be your NPQ block. Lastly, P does not work on Saturday. Actually, that's pretty good. So if P is not on the Saturday, so that kind of starts cutting down where P could potentially go, right? Because now the P is either going to go on the Thursday or the Friday. In fact, the NPQ block, which we know has to exist, the NPQ block can no longer go on the Saturday, which means it's going to have to go either on Thursday or Friday. And that's pretty powerful because, it's going to lock out a full day completely. So this is something that would probably be worthwhile exhausting. There's really only 2 directions this game can go in terms of the NPQ block, so we can play them both out. So we'll have either NPQ goes here, or we're going to have NPQ goes on the Friday. Now, I guess the question is, can we figure out anything further? Now, notice that in both of these scenarios, we could perhaps still have a second P, right? So it's not that it's only Thursday and Friday that you're going to have your P, but you could have another one. Or you could have, of course, only one P. We still don't know that. What else can we do here? Well, actually, we said earlier, we're going to have 2 L's. So since we're going to have 2 L's and these days are locked out, in both of these scenarios, we can actually lock down the L into the remaining 2 days. So that's pretty good. Let's see, is there anything else we can do here? We have to have an M somewhere, and M's going to carry the L with him. Although I guess in both of those cases, that could still be a little bit flexible. In fact, you could have 2 M's in both of those cases still. Actually, so in the top scenario, I think we can we do a bit more damage? We have 2 N's accounted for. So N's are taken care of in this scenario, which means that we're not really allowed to have an N on Saturday anymore, except this comes back to the same principle. We're running out of options, right? We can't have N's on the Saturday. We can't have P's on the Saturday in this scenario, which means who's left over? It's going to have to be L, M, and looks like Q. So that's done. This is pretty good. So what's left now? We've got our 2 Q's taken care of. We've got 2 L's taken care of. We've got 2 N's taken care of. Really just M and P. So this position could either be, it could either be M or P, it looks like. So this is pretty good. The top scenario is almost completely resolved. Now the bottom scenario, can we do more damage here? Obviously still M can go into either one. Nobody's really doubled up, so I'm not sure that helps us. P cannot go on the Saturday, but we could still have another N here. We could have another Q there, or we could have the M there. So it looks like we're a little bit flexible. So that's okay. Let's see what we can do with the questions. So this is our exhaustive set. Question number 18 is our first exclusion question. So actually it's worth noting, this one's not really a complete exclusion question because it really only gives us Friday and Saturday. It's missing the Thursday, but I guess we'll do what we can with what we have. So the first rule, we are told that we have to have a maximum of 2 times per person. Basically, nobody can go on all 3 days, but we can't really test for that right now because we don't have the Thursday. So you know what? Let's leave that be for the time being. Next, the second rule was that anytime you have M, you also have to have L. So answer choice A looks fine on that. B looks okay as well. C looks fine. D looks fine. Answer choice E. Now E, you'll notice, has an M on Saturday without an L, so we can get rid of answer choice E. Next, N has to be on the Friday, so that's easy enough to test for. A looks fine. B does not have an N on the Friday, so we can get rid of answer choice B. Answer choice C has N there. Answer choice D has it there as well. Next, P is not on Saturday, so that should be easy to test as well. So between A, C, and D, answer choice A, we're good. Answer choice C, we're good. Answer choice D has P on the Saturday, so we can get rid of that answer. And that just leaves us with A and C. Now we're kind of stuck here since we've run out of rules. So let's see what we can do. Let's kind of dig into these. Answer choice A, can we have L, M, and N go on both Friday and Saturday? Now, actually, so this is where the exhaustions can come in pretty handy, because you'll notice that if you look at our two exhaustions, that isn't really plausible in either one of these two scenarios, because you could have L, M, and N on the Friday, but then you'll have to have Q on the Saturday. Or in this scenario, you certainly do not have L, M, and N on the Friday, so that definitely doesn't work. So that actually works to disqualify answer choice A. There is no scenario where you could have L, M, and N on both Friday and Saturday. The best answer here then becomes answer choice C. Next, number 19. So if P works on Friday, then any of the following could be true except. So if P is on Friday, I guess it's worth recognizing that would still be consistent with either one of our two scenarios, because we could have still had P go on the Friday over in this scenario over here on the first one, and we could have just as easily had P go on the Friday in the second scenario as well. So both of these seemingly could still work. Let's take a look. Maybe we can do something with what we have. We're looking for what could not be true. Answer choice A, L works on Friday. Well, in this scenario, we could have had P and L on Friday, so that seems fine. Answer choice B, M works on Thursday. So on Thursday, in the second scenario, this seems pretty open, so we could have had P on the Friday and then M go on Thursday. That seems like it could be okay. Answer choice C, M works on the Friday. Could we have M on the Friday? And actually, you'll notice that that wouldn't work in either scenario. If P is on Friday, then either we're in this scenario with P on the Friday and then that's not M, or we're in this scenario where M certainly is not on Friday. So the question here is, what cannot be true? The best answer to number 19 then becomes answer choice C. Next, number 20. If P works on only one day, so if we only get to have one P. So it's worth recognizing, again, this is consistent with both possibilities, except, well, in the top scenario, if there's only one P, then it's here, and this would have to be an M. And in this scenario, if there's only one P, then that means that this is the only P, and then everybody else goes elsewhere. We could try to split scenarios here, but you know what? Again, let's see what we can do with this as is. Maybe we have enough information to answer the question. The question is, what now must be true? Answer choice A, L works on the Thursday. Now, we said the top scenario is still viable as long as this is the only P, and we know that L doesn't have to go on Thursday there, so it looks like we can disqualify answer choice A from the answers. Answer choice B, M works on the Saturday. Does that have to be true? Well, if we only have one P, I mean, in the top scenario, M is already on Saturday, so that's certainly taken care of. Now, in the second scenario, though, actually, wait a minute. If there is only one P and this is your one P, we know that everybody else would have to double, right? Because we said early on in the game, we have to have 4 doubles and only 1 single, which means that if P is your single, that means that everybody else would have to double. So in this scenario, where P is only on Friday, that means that everybody else will have to go twice. So M will go on Thursday and on Saturday. So it actually looks like in both of our exhaustive sets, M would have had to go on the Saturday. Best answer to question number 20 is B. Just in case, let's take a look at the other ones. Answer choice C, N is on the Thursday. Well, if we have a single P, in this scenario, N definitely would have been on the Thursday. But in this scenario, that doesn't seem like it would have to be true, because you could have a P here, and then your second N would go on the Saturday, potentially. so that doesn't seem like it would have to be. Answer choice D, P is on Friday. Well, this top scenario is definitely still viable, and if we have a single P, we could have him on a Thursday and not on Friday, so answer choice D would definitely get disqualified. Answer choice E, Q is on Saturday, and in this scenario, Q would have been on Saturday, that's true, but in the bottom scenario, we could have had a single P here, and your two Qs could have gone on Friday and on Thursday, perhaps, in which case it doesn't seem like Q would have to go on Saturday. Either way, best answer to number 20 is B. Next, number 21. The assignment of volunteers to days is completely resolved if which of the following was true. So you know what, let's hold off on that question. We'll just do the globals in a bit. Let's take a look at number 22. If M is on Thursday, then which of the following would have to be true? So if M is on Thursday, I guess that would force us into the second scenario, right? Because in the top scenario, we already have that taken care of. So if M is on Thursday, would have to go into this position. I guess, does that do much for us beyond that point, though? Because if M is on Thursday, that's entirely consistent with the rest. You know what? Let's take a look. Let's see what we can do with what we have. The question is, what must be true? L is on Friday. Well, that's outright false, because if M is on Thursday, we're in this scenario, and L certainly is not on Friday. B, M is on Saturday. Now, if M is on Thursday, he could also go on Saturday, but I'm not sure. There doesn't seem to be a reason that that has to be true. Next, N is on Saturday. And again, do we have to have N on Saturday? Because that doesn't seem like it would have to. Answer choice D, P is on Thursday. I mean, we know that P is definitely on Friday in that scenario, but there doesn't seem to be a reason that he has to go on Thursday. E, Q is on Friday, and there it is. That definitely has to be true, because if M is on Thursday, that locks us into the second scenario. M would go here, but then that would force the Q, the NPQ, to go on the Friday. So the best answer to question 22 then becomes answer choice E. Next, number 23. If M only works once, which of the following would then have to happen? So if we only have a single M, so first of all, in the top scenario, this would be resolved because this would be your single M and this would end up having to be P. Now in the second scenario though, it seems like M could go either here or there and he would just go once. Now it is worth noting everybody else would have to go twice, but I don't think we know much more about the actual distribution. You know what, again, let's see what we can do with what we have. The question asks, what now must be true? L is on Friday. Well, we said this is consistent with both possibilities, with both templates, which means L doesn't have to go on Friday. In the second scenario, we just have NPQ there. So answer choice A does not seem like it would have to be true. Next, answer choice B. M works on Saturday. Do we have to have M working on the Saturday in that scenario? Well, here he would be, but I mean in the second template, I mean M could go on Thursday and he could be there. That could be the only M. So that doesn't seemingly have to be true. Answer choice B is out. Answer choice C, N is on Saturday. Now, do we have to have N on Saturday? Well, no, because if we only have a single M, this is entirely consistent with this top scenario where N certainly is not on Saturday, so that gets rid of C. Next, P is on Thursday. I guess, does that have to be true that P would be on Thursday? Well, in the top scenario, it definitely would be. But in the second scenario, if we only have a single M, except wait a minute, we did say that everybody else has to go twice, didn't we? And if everybody else has to go twice, that actually would have forced P to go on both Friday and Thursday as well, because, well, again, everybody else has to go twice. M is your only single, which actually does mean that D would have to be true, that P would work on the Thursday. The best answer to question number 23 then is D. Next, lastly, question number 21. The assignment of volunteers to days is completely determined if which of the following is true. So the question is, what would completely lock down the game? Well, let's take a look. Answer choice A. L is on Thursday. Well, it's worth noting, second template, L was always on Thursday, and that certainly doesn't seem like it locked the game. So A doesn't seem like it would do that. Answer choice B. M is on Friday. Well, actually, if M's on Friday, the second scenario gets disqualified. This would no longer work. So for M to be on Friday, we would have to lock into the top scenario. In fact, this would be M, and then everything else is already resolved, which means this is a perfect answer. If M is on Friday, that would lock down the entire game. best answer to 21 then is B. Just in case, let's take a look at the other ones. Answer choice C, N is on Thursday. Now, if N is on Thursday, first of all, this top scenario is viable, but it would not resolve M versus P here. Moreover, we could probably even work in the second scenario because there's nothing stopping N from going on Thursday, so this really wouldn't lock the game. Next, P is on Friday. Now, it's worth noting, P could have been on Friday in either of these two templates, which means this certainly wouldn't completely resolve everything. And lastly, Q is on Saturday. And, I mean, first of all, this is similar to answer choice C in that the top scenario would work here if Q is on Saturday, but that would still leave M versus P unresolved here. And in the second scenario, we could seemingly still have Q on the Saturday, which means either one of these templates would still work, so that certainly wouldn't lock the game. So either way, best answer to number 21 then is answer choice B.